This episode brought to you by Crapola Soup, the only soup made of tomatoes and 100% real porcupine needles. We also have a vegan version made of organic tomatoes and all natural recycled toothpicks. Crapola Soup. It's what's for supper.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another wonderful episode of the Above Average Joe Show. Today, our guest has been on several projects, including My Future Boyfriend, Hunger Games, Ragamuffin, Las Vegas 42, Anchorman 2, Footloose, and many, many other projects. Our guest today is the wonderful, beautiful actress, Debi Kimsey. And Debi, after going through all of your list of things you worked on, you are an actress.
I am an accidental actress.
Accidental actress.
Yes.
Awesome. What is your story? How did you get into acting? Is it something you always wanted to do? You said you stumbled into it somehow.
It was never, ever, never on my radar. I took pictures of my granddaughter into an agent and said, "Isn't she cute? Don't you want to sign her?" And they said, "No, thank you. She's ugly." No, they didn't say she was ugly, but they said, "No, thank you. We don't take children. We'll take you."
Oh, wow.
And they signed me.
Right on the spot.
On the spot. And so that's when I started doing it, and I actually started doing a lot of extra work, and it was fun.
And how long ago was this? Was this like 5 years ago, 10 years ago?
The very first thing that I think I did was Footloose.
Okay.
And that was in 2011. And
So
it
7
gave
years.
me the bug. Yes, and I think it's
Oh, sorry, 8 years now. Sorry, 8. I
What
forgot
year
it's
are we in,
2019.
Joe?
I forgot the year changed.
Oh, you are average.
Oh, I am. And,
Yes.
And you have worked on several movies, fairly big name movies, and you've actually worked with a lot of stars like shoulder to shoulder right next to you. And let's start at the top of this list. Las Vegas is probably one of my favorite movies that I've seen you in. And you worked side by side with one of the actors who was the great and legendary
Mr. DeNiro. I got to feed him. I got to feed him soup with a shaky hand trying for his mouth. I fed him cheese off a knife. They said, "Take that knife away from her. Too important to have her with a knife there." And those were things that did not make the cut. But I was his girlfriend in the last scene of the movie.
Awesome.
And I've worked on 3 De Niro movies. So I think that we have this relationship going on, where it's
Does he know about this relationship?
He does not. He does not. As
Not
a matter
yet.
of fact, the last time I saw him on set, I felt like he looked at me and a flash went through his head like, "I've been doing this too long. I'm starting to recognize the background people."
Or that was the lady with the knife.
But I actually had a speaking part in that one.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Tell us about that.
Oh my gosh, it was so fun. My scene partner was Cheech Marin from Cheech and Chong.
Wow.
And what happens is it's a scene where De Niro's up at a coffin and stuff, and Cheech starts hitting on me. And it's my husband's funeral. And I have just been featured to be some fainting lady that passes out when some action goes on. And Cheech was so good, and he engaged me so much that they gave me a written part in the movie.
Wow. Which movie was this?
Oh,
What was the name?
The movie was called War with Grandpa.
Okay. Yeah.
War with Grandpa was filmed 4 years ago and may never see the light of day.
I was going to say, I have heard the name from somewhere, but I don't think I'd ever seen it, and that makes sense now that you say that nobody's seen it.
It was released last week in Greece,
Oh, wow.
but it got caught up in the Harvey Weinstein scandal. Never thought that would affect me. And it's a children's book story.
Now you have to hashtag
So you got
yourself.
a children's
Me too.
story, right? And Uma Thurman and Jane Seymour are in the movie, and they're big in the Me Too movement. So it may never make it here.
Aw.
But it was so fun. It didn't matter. It was the best day ever. That Cheech guy was so much fun. Oh my gosh. I had him laughing so hard they had to stop filming several times. And Christopher Walken was sitting next to him. Oh my gosh.
And out of curiosity, working with Cheech, I know this is going to be a semi-inappropriate question, but did y'all get a chance to self-medicate together at all?
You know, I don't think he needs any self-medication.
You think
He
it's
is
still
so
in his veins?
funny anyway. Yes, it's like he's high all the time. And, you know, it's funny because the crew kept asking him stuff about that. And he was kind of over almost all those jokes. He had just bought a museum, a Chicano art museum.
Oh, wow.
No, he didn't buy it. I'm sorry, somebody gave it to him in Riverside, California. He was just delightful. He was so excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to tell him a story of something that happened to me like over 50 years ago that involved him. And oh my gosh, he died. I don't know if you remember Up in Smoke, the album that they did back. Oh, it was so
I know
funny.
the name of it. But
Okay,
that's
so
as far as I
growing
know.
up, I'm not allowed to listen to any records. I'm not allowed at the table. We're not allowed to wear bathing suits. We're in Florida. We're not allowed to read. I come home to visit at 17 years old, and my dad makes an exception and lets us listen to an album. And we're all sitting at the dinner table. There's 8 of us, and you hear, "Do you suffer from the steady drip, drip, drip of gonorrhea?" I thought my dad was going to pass out. That was off that album, I was able to tell that story to Cheech.
That is amazing.
Oh my gosh, he loved it.
And also, we'll go back a little bit, back to Las Vegas when you were working with De Niro.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me a story about when you were working on one of the scenes, and he started asking you questions during the scene, which you're not allowed to talk.
That is true, and that was funny. And he was looking at me like I was like an idiot, you know. And he'd say, "What kind of soup is that?" And I didn't answer. And finally, I said, "Cream of crapola." I don't know why that came out of my mouth. It was tomato soup. It had nothing to do with anything. And they're like, "You're not supposed to talk." I'm like, okay. But he liked it.
Yeah.
He thought it was kind of...
And that's just kind of an awkward situation where, like, everyone tells you don't talk, and then all of a sudden they ask you a question, and it's like, how do you respond in that? And there is no right answer.
No.
Because you lose either way.
Well, and Cheech started doing that. He was hitting on me, like at the funeral, asking me, "Is this seat taken?" And none of it was in the script and stuff. And, you know, that's how I got lines. Because finally he said, "You can talk." I said, "No, I can't." He said, "Yes, you can." I said, "No." The director said, "Okay, go ahead." Because nobody will know who you are.
And at that point, you finally can say something, which is nice
Yes.
that you got the okay from the director.
That's the only time.
Exactly. And then also working on Ragamuffin. You didn't have lines on that, but you were right next to, in the pews, one of the main stars.
Well, on Ragamuffin, actually, that's where I got my first IMDb credit, because I originally did have a lot of lines. I had a character that was very influential in Rich Mullen's life, and it was his grandmother. And I had a lot of lines, but when they cut it down, they took my character out totally.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I saw very little of it, but I remember you talking about it. It's like, ooh, I got all these
But still,
lines.
again, it was a great experience. You know, we had fun. We filmed with his real family, his brother, and who looks just like him, and I got a great affinity for him and his work. And yeah, it was still fun. I don't care.
And then also working on 42, baseball movie.
Yes.
You were filing nails, it looked like.
I was.
With one of the main characters. I didn't actually get to see 42 yet, so I'm not sure what happened in the...
Shame on you.
Well, I know what happens in the movie because it's based on the true story, but during that scene, are you an assistant? Are you his wife? Are you just somebody he hired as a nail filer to give him a pedicure while he's on the phone? Because all I saw was a screenshot.
Well, it was a baseball commissioner who was on the phone negotiating stuff for Jackie Robinson. So I actually wasn't on screen or didn't see Jackie Robinson, who is Chadwick Boseman, whatever. Yeah. And later I did get to see him in Black Panther. Oh, he'd love that, Pink Panther. Oh my gosh. And I remember seeing him in the Jackie Robinson thing and thinking he was going to go far, but I didn't know he'd go as far as he has. But that was a fun day. I was just, I was a manicurist, and I actually had a stand-in.
Oh, wow.
I'd never had a stand-in before, and it was the casting director had to stand in for me, so that was a big deal for me.
Awesome.
Yes, that was fun. I actually get a lot of screen time, and I think it's because I make the actors look better. normally where they would do a one shot of an actor, and they're not going to put a really attractive person next to them to detract or anything. And so I noticed, like from Footloose on, that they would shoot me with the actor because I made him look better. The white hair and stuff, it just makes them stand out.
Which
you
a
don't know.
perfect example is if you've seen Anchorman 2. During the funeral scene, you made it into the trailer, plus you've also made it into the movie, which doesn't always happen. Sometimes stuff you see in the trailer isn't necessarily in the movie. But you are right behind, I wouldn't say all of the cast, because one of them's supposed to be in the casket.
Well, he's actually doing his own eulogy standing there.
Yeah.
And I was right between Will Ferrell and Paul Rudd.
And you got really good screen time on that, and I worked on that too. I don't know how your scenes were, but I know when we were filming ours, it was very difficult not to laugh because of all the scenes. But you guys were at a funeral, so I don't know if it was humorous or if you guys were more solemn or if Brick was just going off on his tangents like he always does. Or
It was so funny, and I actually think if you watch really close, you can see me try not to lose it. Yeah, it was because that director would do one take as how it was written, and then he let them ad-lib the whole rest of the time, and they do like 10 or 15 things, and it was very hard to keep a straight face. Plus, it was freezing. And I remember all the guys, they would, I was background extra, and it was so cold, and they would have people come comb their hair and put coats on them, and I'm standing between them just shaking. And Paul Rudd was very concerned about that.
Aww.
So that was sweet.
That's nice.
Yeah, it was nice. It's nice to see the humanity of these guys.
And then also in Footloose, you had some pretty good screen time also, or at least a pretty fairly close-up shot next to Andie McDowell.
Bunch of times with Andie. I think I did make her look
like
better.
You guys were besties.
Yes, we were best friends. They finally decided to make me her best friend. They said you would sit next to the same person in church. It was not the intention originally. But I can find myself in that movie about 40 or 50 times.
Oh, wow.
I'm in almost every single scene, even if it's big crowds and stuff, that did not involve dancing.
Wow.
Although I snuck onto set for the dancing scene. They told me I couldn't be there because I'd been in too many other scenes.
Did you just hide in the back then and
yes,
just hope that your hair was noticeable?
Well, they were doing a free casting call where they weren't even paying the extras, and so I showed up on that. And when I pulled in the parking lot, there was a girl in a wheelchair getting out to be a free extra, and I wheeled her in like I was her person. And
oh, that's great.
I did. Oh, I'm bad.
Oh, no, that's wonderful. That's amazing.
Yeah, I actually shot a commercial today for an airline, and
wow.
they had me talk about travel for over 2 hours.
Oh.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That was your interview.
Interesting. It was actually the filming of it, and they're going to create a pitch video for this airline, and
cool.
So it was a lot of fun. It was very different. They filmed it in my place, which was random. And I get to do this tonight. What a day. I must be somebody.
So let's go ahead and take a break real quick, and we will be back shortly with some more Debi Kimsey. Welcome back, everybody. We're actually going to talk about the past. You used to work as a flight attendant.
I did, for almost 20 years.
And I think you said you've got some pretty amazing stories as a flight attendant, starting with the wardrobe that you used to wear.
Yes, the first uniform I was hired in had hot pants as an option, but you had to be hot pants approved. You could wear the skirt or the pants normally, but you had to be hot pants approved. And I was not approved. How
do you audition or submit for that? Do you have to go into a panel of people? Or did you have to submit a photograph, or do your coworkers vote and say, oh yeah, she's definitely hot pants material? How do they choose who passes and who doesn't?
Well, they didn't actually give us parameters. They just would tell us you're not approved. And I took exception to that, so I borrowed my roommate's hot pants, and I wore them on a trip. And I found out why I wasn't hot pants approved. It's because of my height. My butt is right in every passenger's face. I was never so pinched, patted, and harassed.
Oh.
And I never wore them again.
Oh, wow.
So it had to do with that. We also wore chocolate patent leather go-go boots with our hot pants. And yeah, it was a lovely uniform.
That is an amazing color scheme right there.
Yeah. Flying has really, really changed. I mean, the smoking, for instance. When I first started flying, there was 3 rows of non-smoking in the front, and it went back as the years went on, and then there was 3 rows that was all you could smoke, and then of course no smoking. But we used to serve a 5-course meal in first class, and we would set fire to Bacon, Alaska. And now if you have a lighter, you go to jail.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a big change.
Cool, awesome. Well, it has been a pure delight having you on the show, Debbie. Thank you for coming and joining us.
It's my pleasure. It's always fun to see you.
And thank you, everybody, for listening and tuning in. We will have another episode coming up, so if you haven't already, go on Facebook and like the Above Average Joe Show. Thanks, guys. Bye. Thank you again to our special guest, Debi Kimsey. The Above Average Show is written and produced by me. Be sure to check out our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitters. And look for us on Spotify and Stitcher. You can also check out another podcast I co-host, The Extra Unordinary, and other great media content by Moon Possum Productions at moonpossum.com.